Well, only
Can
for
you
the
hear
li-
us?
Only for the live video, I would say.
Yeah.
Oh, for
Yeah.
live video.
Yes. Welcome everyone. Thank you for coming. Thank you to Kathy and the whole team here at Palm Harbor Library for partnering with us. Some brief intros for our lovely authors. Kate Shanahan received her MA in Asian Studies from the University of Michigan after teaching English in Sapporo, Japan for 2 years. She then enjoyed a long career with the Japanese company in Ohio before writing Tangled Spirits and winning the Florida Authors and Publishers Association Summer Award for historical fiction. The Iron Palace is her second novel, so we're excited to celebrate that with her today. And Annette Masters is standing in for Ella. First, she couldn't be here, and Annette is the author of Twisty Young Adult Thrillers. Her award-winning YA debut, The Hennessy Line, came out last year, and she decided to release Dragonfly Down later this year. And she lives and writes on a small farm in Odessa. Thank you for being here.
Thank you and congratulations. We're so excited to welcome the Iron Palace into the world. Julia just gave us a brief introduction, but could you tell us a little bit more about your Asian studies and your background in Japan?
If I can turn this on. Let me turn it on. Yes, I decided to pick East Asia as my specialty when I entered college for a political science degree, because I lived in England growing up and I'd been to Europe, and Asia seemed like unexplored territory. And then I graduated in the early 80s during a recession, and there were no jobs to be had for political science majors, so I found out that you could get a job teaching English in Japan. So I went to Japan for 2 years, taught English, decided to come back and get a master's degree because at that time Toyota was setting up in the US, Honda was setting up, and it seemed like Japan and Japanese language would be a good thing to get a job in. And that in fact happened. I got a job with Honda setting up in Ohio. And I got to speak Japanese for work.
The time is now 5:15. The bookstore will close in 15 minutes. Thank you.
So I got to travel for work to Japan, and really enjoyed that. Spent my whole career there.
So what made you decide to start writing about Japan?
Well, as part of getting, first living in Japan, and I had lots of time on my hands to read, and I read books in English by Japanese authors. And I got very interested in Sei Shonagon, who wrote the Pillow Book in the year 1000. And I thought, how did this woman write this book that's still studied today? And I just thought, someday I want to write a book about her. And so that's how it got started.
Very interesting. Now, is this a sequel to Tangled Spirits? Do you have to read that one before you read this one, or is this a
It
standalone?
is a sequel. I wrote it with the intention of it being a standalone. And some of the people who read it and reviewed it said, yes, you can read it as a standalone. And some people said that, but they recommend reading the first one, so you get more out of it. But I did intend it to be a standalone.
And what was the inspiration for the Iron Palace specifically?
Well, two things. There was a historical event in the year 1002. The Crown Princess consort died in this very horrible and mysterious way, and there's nothing in history about what caused her death, but there's a rumor of poisoning. And then there's also a famous folk tale that I couldn't find anybody had written about in English, or maybe Matt knows, but the legend of the drunken demon. And so I decided to do a retelling of the legend of the drunken demon and combine it with this mystery of what killed the Crown Prince's consort.
Very interesting. Now, one of the things I really liked about Tangled Palace, one of my favorite scenes that really stood out to me, I'm not the Tangled Palace, Tangled Spirits, I'm so sorry. One of the things that really stood out to me was the birth scene and all of the, would you call them superstitions?
Mm-hmm.
The things that they did, people were playing cards so that someone was winning at the time of the birth, and there were just all of these different things. And I'm wondering, with all the superstitions and folklore and things that come up that are true to history, what are some of the ones that are hardest to believe?
Well, let's see. In terms of folklore, like that they would gamble during the say. So you had the woman in agony, undergoing labor, waiting for the baby to come out, and then you'd have these men over here, or women, mediums, gambling with dice. So that just seems a little weird. But the reason they did that is because gambling, you could only win with luck. And so luck was supposed to transfer to the birth. So the woman giving birth would be lucky in having a good birth. So there's some very interesting and odd customs of this time period.
And are there things like that in Iron Palace too? Things that we might find hard to believe?
Maybe the beliefs, very strong belief in spirit possession. So pretty much anything that would go wrong, they thought the spirit possessed you. And so medical practitioners included mediums and exorcists, as well as doctors. So, but another thing people might find hard to believe that was true is that women could be doctors in this period of Japan at court. So I was surprised when I learned that. And I wrote a blog post about it because I thought nobody's going to believe this. But there's actually a document of how many physicians were at court, and they have a different word for female doctor and male doctor. So like 11 female doctors were at court.
Well, that's very interesting. So when you're writing historical fiction and you have all of these historical facts that you want to weave into your plot, how do you make sure you're balancing the historical facts with the plot and all the things a writer has to do, all the story beats, the plot arc, the character arcs? How do you combine all of that into one unique story and balance it?
That's a good question. It's hard. It's a challenge. I think my guidepost, my guardrails were, it had to be believable. It had to be believed by the people of this era. So it was not fantasy, true fantasy. I'm not making up a world, and I'm not making up customs. Everything has to be the way it actually was. And so that helped me keep it. Like when I tend to veer, like maybe into the fantastical, like did they believe that then? No, they didn't, so I have to take that out. And then research. I would just find so many interesting things in academic articles, things about women, being physicians, or the reasons for the legend of the drunken demon, like what that represented. I just found so many interesting things that were actual. It really helped sort of tie those things together, tie the story together.
So when do you decide when you're going to diverge or maybe change the history just a little to fit the story?
Only if there's something that happened in, maybe it probably happened 5 years before, but for the sake of the story, I needed it to happen in 1002, not in 995. So there were little tweaks like that, which I tried to make sure I include that at the end in my historical notes, because I want it to be really clear what's fact and what's fiction.
That must be a lot to hold in your head as you're writing. How many hours of research do you think you have just in the Iron Palace?
The Iron Palace, I used a lot of what I had already learned through the research for Tangled Spirits. So that book took several years on and off to do the research. This one, I would say, I don't know, maybe 40 or 50 hours, not including, writing my blog post where I might learn something that I then incorporated into the book.
Can you talk a little bit about the time travel in the book?
Yeah, so when I was, so I've been fascinated by this era because of the classical literature that was written then and the fact that women wrote it. And so I wanted to set it in this era, but for Americans who may know nothing about this era, I would end up just doing explaining, and it could get boring. So when I learned about the belief in spirit possession, I thought, well, this solves a lot of problems. I'll have an American go back in time, because then she can take you into the past with her, and she can ask the questions, so that it's not me explaining. And then spirit possession allowed her to get inside someone's brain, so I didn't have to figure out how is she going to understand classical Japanese.
It's really a brilliant technique. I think it came off very well in Tangled Spirits, and I'm sure it does in here as well. That was a very good idea.
Thank you.
What gave you the idea to use the letters, so many letters?
Well, I wanted to get Masako's story in there, but I couldn't just, I still felt like I really wanted it to be from Mina's point of view. And I also needed some way to get Mina to go back in time. And so the letters are a way that I can convey Masako's point of view to Mina in the present time in a way that might convince her to go back in time.
I thought it was also interesting, you said that people then didn't always go by their name, they went by their title. So you had to choose. How did you work around that?
I decided that for the people who are the most important in the story, the main characters, that I would use their name mostly. And for the lesser characters, then I would use title. Occasionally I would slip in a title when it would be a natural way for someone to address somebody else. But for the most part, the main characters was their name.
So what is next for the third book?
I am mulling that over right now. I have this feeling that somebody is going to come from ancient Japan into the present.
Oh, cool.
So whether that transpires or not, I'm not sure, but I feel like that is going to be a fun thing to write, although
It
kind of a
sounds
shock
fun to read. We'll
to
look forward to that.
whoever's going to be doomed with that.
Do you have a favorite character? Will it be a favorite character who travels?
Actually, the bad characters are often my favorites. So I think it's going to be a bad character that comes to the present and can cause a lot of problems. In fact, this probably won't happen, so I'm going to tell you about this idea I have,
Okay.
which is that this character comes to. So you know how in science fiction somebody goes from the present or the future to the past and they're seen as like a god because they know all this stuff? I thought, wouldn't it be cool if he comes from the past and he's treated as a god because he knows things that we've completely forgotten?
Oh, that's great.
So I'm just mulling that over. It probably won't happen, but if it
No, it
does,
has to.
you'll
You
know.
told us.
Yeah.
No way.
I know, right?
I'm not promising.
What was the hardest part about writing this book?
The editing. I can write fast, but it's just full of redundant sentences and repetition, and I start, every sentence with I did this, I did that. So editing's very painful, just having to go through and fix all that. Like I can write, a chapter in an hour, but then it might take me 3 hours to edit it.
Can you talk about your process from beginning to end in writing, or your daily process?
So I start with mulling over different plot ideas, like I just told you one. And then I also go back to I take a kind of a general time period, and then I do research, like what happened in this era, and then which of these things that happened are really intriguing, like the death of the consort. I mean, that was kind of, I sort of found that. I'm like, well, this is weird, because her sister died the previous year, and her other sister died, and you know what? They were all married to an emperor or future emperor, so that's kind of weird. I first do that, and then I create an outline, and then I start filling out my outline, chapter by chapter, and then I just make myself write. Like I promise myself I'll write 1,000 words every day, no matter how crappy. And then when I get that through a first initial very rough draft, then I know I've made enough progress to keep going.
To get some more down. When did you decide you wanted to be a writer?
Really, after I retired and I took a writing workshop for historical fiction specifically, and I got through the workshop and I had an outline and I had a plot and I was really happy with it, and I thought, okay, I want to do this. I'll go for it.
And you just did. Congratulations. What are your favorite historical fiction books or your favorite historical fiction authors?
Well, somebody asked this the other day, and I had to scratch my head quite a bit because I read a lot that I loved, but not to where I'd reread it, and that's my definition of a favorite, to reread it. But I have to say The French Lieutenant's Woman, which came out in the 80s, early 80s, and I tried to reread that the other day, and I'm like, man, this is so slow. So then it was a favorite. Now I don't think it would be. Shogun was, a really good read, and just gave me hope that people can be fascinated by Japanese historical fiction.
How much of your time, your mental capacity, do you devote to Japan and dreaming of Japan rather than side?
the research, I think about it a lot. I just think, oh, I wonder if I could find information about this person or that person, like the Empress Sadako's mother. Like, she was a well-known poet in her day. She spoke Chinese. She, was well regarded. She had 7 children who all were kind of amazing people. So I do think about that, like whether I can build it in or not. I can always write a blog post about it if I can't figure out how to get it into the book. So yeah, I guess I do spend a lot of time thinking about it.
Are there any other examples like that you haven't been able to work into a book that you could share with us that you're dying to get into the next book? Or
well, yeah, there's actually this blog post I'm working on now, which is about Empress Sadako's mother. It was in a first draft of the book, but the event took place in 995, and when I changed the timeline, I had to cut it out. But she wrote this poem that reminded me of an Alanis Morissette song lyric. So I was thinking I'm going to write a blog post about it and there's like 5 different translations of the poem, and I'm going to do my own translation and then put those in the blog post so you can see the different translations. And they can judge, just remind you of that lyric, like, you told me you'd love me till you died, but you're still alive. That's what this poem sounds like.
Oh, wow, I love that. That's incredible. What other ways is life today similar or completely different? You talk about there's female doctors, this woman had these amazing children. What other similarities do you see maybe in day-to-day life or our culture that you think modern readers would relate to?
Well, kind of what got me started on this road, as I mentioned, Kate Shanahan, who wrote this kind of a BuzzFeed-style book, list of lists and little observations. And when I read it, I'm like, this could easily be a blog. This could easily be a BuzzFeed. She's got lists of embarrassing things or lists of awkward things. And when you read it, you're like, hey, I know exactly what that feels like. So it's like, this is what connects us across time, across language, culture, or these kind of fundamental human feelings about what's embarrassing, even though culturally what embarrasses us might be different. But fundamentally, we all get embarrassed by things, or we laugh at things. A Japanese sense of humor, too. Most people don't understand what a great sense of humor the Japanese have. I had a sort of a professional editor review my early draft of Tangled Spirits, and she's like, she didn't like some of the things I put in there that were funny, because she just thought it should be so serious. I'm like, no, the whole point is the Japanese have a great sense of humor, so why would I not reflect that?
It's important to share the human condition. We all laugh, cry, feel embarrassment, like you said. That's very interesting. What do you hope people will take away from this?
Well, I hope that they would be more interested in Japan, in this era of Japan, because I always say this era is before samurai, shogun, and sushi. So most people, that's what they know about Japan. And in fact, I've had critique partners kind of explain to me, like, oh no, Japan didn't have, this or that. They didn't have police. They would just execute people. I'm like, you're wrong. They did have police.
I have a middle grade historical fiction that I shared with the critique group, and one of the people in the group commented that I had the dates of the Civil War wrong. I was like, no, it may not, you may find other things wrong with it, but I guarantee my dates are correct. So far that's, it is fun to share things with other people. Have you shared with any students or tried to reach a younger audience, high school or college? Who is your audience? And
when I wrote it, I thought my audience would be kind of the same age as my protagonist, which is the college student. But based on kind of what I can glean from reviews and knowing people who've read it, it's older people who are like really kind of, they've read everything to be read about World War II, and now they're interested in reaching out and learning more about other cultures. So when I wrote the second book, I thought, yeah, I'm not gonna try to make it more for younger people. I'm gonna try to make it a little bit more for older people. Although I did build in a bit more magic this time, and I hope I didn't antagonize any older people by having more magic. But it's all magic that would have happened, that they would have believed would have happened.
Oh, that's very interesting. Well, does anyone have any questions, or is there any questions?
I have a question. You said you sit down and you set the goal of writing 1,000 words for the day, but then you keep mentioning your blog.
Mhm.
So are those even separate, and
Yeah.
how much of your day is writing?
Well, when I'm in the mode of the 1,000 words a day, I don't really focus on the blog as much. But I would count that. I would give myself that.
Yeah,
that
okay.
it gets to count. Yeah. And sometimes I find myself like going way past 1,000 just because I'm on a roll,
Right.
which is a good feeling.
And what's an example of Japanese humor?
All right. Well, this is a little off color.
That's fine with me.
I was reading this ancient chronicle of Japan, and it was probably written and published, so to speak, disseminated in the 8th or 9th century, and it talked about a battle in which this force was defeated, and these defeated warriors were so scared they pooped their pants. And this was all in Japanese, and they used the word excrement, I think, in the translation. And they named the town Excrement Pants. That's the town where the battle happened.
Yeah, that is cute.
That's funny. Are there any other things you'd like to share with us that I haven't mentioned about either the process of writing or these people? Do you feel a certain sense of a need to portray them in a certain way or to honor all of this research you've accumulated?
Yeah, it's kind of dangerous because I have, I think probably especially in the first book, I tended to put some stuff in there because I thought it was cool and not necessarily because it moved the story forward. I mean, my first draft was 120,000 words, so I had to cut out 20,000. And a lot of that was going through and saying every scene, what was the purpose? And so I got rid of a lot of my cool stuff that way.
I hope you saved it. Can you put it somewhere
I
else?
did,
Okay.
and yeah. I'm gonna have to, at some point, start posting some of that as like cut scenes. So I do, I try, it's hard though, because I just find so much so cool, but not everybody's gonna find it that cool probably. So I have to be strict with myself.
When did you decide? I know you went to Japan to teach English. When did it become such a passion? When did you go from just being someone who went there to teach English to someone who's just, this is obviously very passionate to you?
Well, I really had a great time in Japan. I got along with people really well. I didn't study very hard, but I managed to, by the end of 2 years, speak the language conversationally. And then when studying it, I got my master's, I got to really do a deep dive, sociology, psychology, culture, all that stuff. And then I started for Honda, and I really enjoyed the company, the culture. I worked closely with the Japanese. They liked me. I had one engineer ask me one time, why do you think the Japanese like you so much? And I was about to say, well, maybe it's because I speak Japanese. And he said, I think it's because you look like a manga character. Anime. Thank you.
Do you think it has to do with the fact that you had so much respect for them? That they
I
could feel
do.
that and you have
Yeah,
to?
I do think so. I mean, it's something that school them on their literature.
That's
They'd be like,
amazing.
oh, really? Is that true?
Do you read Japanese literature today?
I have not read much other than in translation. Some of the books that are really popular right now, like Tales from the Cafe, a couple of others, I can't think of them right now, but some of the funnier, lighter, shorter stuff, Convenience Store Woman. There's some really, really good short books out there in translation right now.
Do you go back? Do you travel there?
I haven't been since I retired. I went, right before I retired for work, but we're talking about going as research for the next book.
Oh, that's
Very
exciting.
soon.
That's a good excuse.
Exactly. That's what my husband said. Kate, no, you need to do some research in Japan.
Sarah Penner was talking about that with her third book. It was in the Maldives. Does anyone?
Malfi Coast.
The Malfi Coast. She had to go there to research. So I think that's a great excuse for a trip. Are there any other questions?
So after the third book, do you have anything planned beyond that?
No, I keep thinking maybe should I be done? But then I'll think of something and I'll be like, no, I don't think I'll be done. I don't think it'll be the same series. Like I was telling Matt, maybe I'd turn it into a light novel sort of series first. But I think maybe to write something more, maybe not historical fiction. I don't know, but it's hard to see that because I just enjoy it. I enjoy spending my time that way. So I don't think I'll be done.
You anticipate a Japanese audience for this?
Not in the English version,
No.
if I turn it into a light novel, I will work with a Japanese co-author and have it translated. Then I hope I could get that audience, but that's a little while away.
Have you had any Japanese readers chime in or critique or?
Oh yeah, so I got a back cover. I'm so excited. So Noriko Tsunoda, writers, a professor, she just retired, but she wrote a lot of the essays I used in research, and so I wrote to her and asked her if she would mind giving me a quote, and I told her how much I enjoyed her stuff, a little flattery. And she agreed to read it. She read it, she said she really enjoyed it. And she gave me the blurb.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see if some schools might be interested. Are you familiar with Margie Rassler? She's a writer in Tampa. She wrote a book. She's a Cuban American, and she wrote a book called Dancing on the Hyphen, just about her experience as a Cuban American. And it became like a college textbook. It's selling in the colleges now, so that might be a wonderful way for more readers to be introduced to
Yeah,
this.
I'd love for college students to read it. That's why one reason I want to be very strict about the historical accuracy is I wouldn't want somebody to not give it as a optional read or recommend it because they didn't think it was accurate.
Too much fantasy. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Any other questions? Anything else you'd like to share with us?
I don't know, I feel like I've talked a lot, so.
Well, thank you and congratulations. I know I'm excited to read it and excited to see what comes next. I'm happy I got to stand in for a minute and see you and be part of this night.
Thank you so much.
So thanks everybody for coming, and I know the book is back there for sale if anyone doesn't have a copy yet.
Thanks
Thank you.
everybody.